A lead sheet gives us the bare bones of a song. It gives us the melody, the lyrics, and the chords. But there's a lot of information that it doesn't give us. It doesn't tell us how many people should play the song or what instruments they should be playing. It leaves all of those decisions up to the performer. So there's a lot of flexibility we have when we're playing from a lead sheet. And to get started getting comfortable with lead sheets, I want to create the easiest, simplest possible scenario. I want to imagine that a singer has hired us to create a piano accompaniment for a song that the singer is going to sing. This means that we're only going to be worried about creating chords from the lead sheet on the piano. We're not going to worry about creating an arrangement of the melody. The singer will take care of the melody. So I want to look at this lead sheet that we were looking at for Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, because our singer, of course, is going to be singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, at least the first 8 measures of it. And let's think about some of the problems that we may encounter. First, let me just point out to you, I've done a little prep work here. Here is on the very, very top, you can see here is the melody, the treble clef staff and the melody and the chords that we were given in the lead sheet. But to that, I've added 2 more staves. I've added a treble clef staff, which is going to be covering the music of the right hand of the piano, and then the bass clef staff below that, which is going to be covering the left hand music of the piano. And I've brought those 2 staves together with this brace, or this bracket, that you see at the end that sort of visually connects the 2 staves of the piano. And then I've even further connected those with a line that goes up and connects the 2 staves of the piano part with the vocal part. And notice as I go through the rest of the song, I've created bar lines that go through each of the 2 staves of the piano, but I break those bar lines between the piano staff and the vocal staff, just to give some room for the lyrics there. Okay, so I've done a little bit of prep work to set this up. Now, what is the first thing that we need to figure out? Well, the first thing that we need to figure out, or the first piece of information that's going to be important to us, is we know the chords, we know what the melody is, but do we know exactly how those chords fit over the melody? Well, the lead sheet actually gives us a little bit of information about how the chords and the melody fit together. It's not immediately obvious, and sometimes it can be a little bit vague, but this is the basic idea. A chord symbol is going to be sitting above the note where that chord symbol, or the beat, where that chord symbol starts, or that harmony starts. So for instance, our first chord symbol is the C right here at the very, very beginning. That means play a C major chord. That C major chord, or that C major chord symbol, is situated right above the first beat of the first measure. So that means, unless we're told otherwise, that C major harmony, that C major chord sound, is going to start on the first beat. Notice there's no chord symbol above the second note of that measure or above either of the notes in the second measure. So if there's no chord symbol, then we're just going to assume that that C major chord, or that C major harmony, is going to continue on through the rest of that music, through the rest of those 2 measures. Unless we're told differently, we just assume that C major carries on. So if we add up the number of beats that this C major chord is going to be held for, that is 1, 2, 3, 4. So that C major chord is going to have to last for 4 beats. Let's take a look at the F. So notice the F major chord is situated right above the first beat of the third measure. So that means that is where the F major harmony is going to start, or the F major chord is going to start. And we don't see anything above the second beat of that measure. So that means the F is going to be held for the rest of that measure. So how many beats is this F going to be held for? It's going to be held for 1, 2 beats. Let's look at the C. Notice the C major chord is sitting right above the first beat of this measure. Now we're over a half note in the melody, so the melody is going to, that G in the melody is going to be held for 2 beats. But the C starts on the first beat of that measure, and we don't see any other chord symbol here, so we're just going to assume that C major chord is being held for 2 beats. So let's count them up. 1, 2, 2 beats here. The G major chord begins right above the F. So that begins on the first beat of this measure. And we don't see any other chord symbols in this measure, so that means we're going to assume that this G major chord is going to be held for 1, 2 beats. The C major chord in the 6th measure, same thing. Look, it starts right above the E. We don't see another chord symbol in that measure, so that means that the C, unless we're told otherwise, is going to be held for 1, 2 beats. The D minor chord is sitting right above the first beat of this measure. But notice there is, in this case, another chord in this measure, and that's the G chord, and that happens to be sitting right above the second beat. So this D minor chord is going to be held for 1 beat, and this G major chord is going to be held for 1 beat. Then finally, the C major chord in the last measure, it starts right above the first beat of the measure. And since we don't see any other harmony or any other chord symbols in this measure, we can assume that C major is going to be held for 1, 2 beats. So starting from the beginning, we have a C major chord that's held for 4 beats, an F major chord that's held for 2 beats, a C major chord that's held for 2 beats, a G major chord that's held for 2 beats, a C major chord that's held for 2 beats, a D minor chord that's held for 1, a G major chord that's held for 1, and then finally a C major chord that's held for 2 beats. Now what are we going to do with that information? Well, we'll find out in the next video.